Some people say you should never let a crisis go to waste. Well, keep your eyes open, because they are using the Wuhan virus to come for your liberties. So we'll ponder that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here once again with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution and we teach a rising generation to be free. Thank you for joining me. As always, please head over to the website constitutionstudy.com so we can keep up with everything that we're doing here at the Constitution Study. There is some big news coming, so I'm going to encourage you, click on the Get the Newsletter button, sign up for the newsletter. Once a month, I send you an email with everything that's been going on, all the news that's fit to print, at least for the Constitution Study. You can also check the box and have these episodes delivered directly to your inbox. No wondering about Facebook or YouTube algorithms, right here in your email. I want to thank everybody that's sharing this work, that's helping me spread the word. People who are inviting me to come speak, to come be interviewed, to come teach, whether it's in person or now even more often online over the internet. It's an amazing time, an amazing way that we can share this information. I also want to thank those who are purchasing my books or donating to the cause, because they help me bring you this content. If you want to see more of this, continue supporting me. Again, you can make a one-time donation. You can make a repeating donation. You can join the insider group, which will be available. If it's not already on the website, it will be available very shortly. That not only supports the Constitution Study, but gives you access to all of the digital media that I put up. So with that, let's talk about this particular crisis. Benjamin Franklin said, "They who would give up essential liberties for temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security." Yet what do we see today? Me, I see panic. I see fear. And I see people coming after our liberties. Now, some of those who want to take away our liberties are doing so because they think they can keep us safe. But as Ben said, those who give up their liberties for temporary safety deserve neither. Now, I know it's scary out there. Most people want someone, at least someone else, to do something, especially in a time of crisis. Sadly, they want that someone to do anything, as long as they think it'll keep them safe. But rarely do they take account of the cost. Like Esau, who traded his birthright for a bowl of soup, it seems Americans will trade their liberties and freedoms as long as someone says it'll keep them safe. But safe from what? Now, I did a little research, and as of this recording, the CDC is reporting just 7,000 cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. That's 0.002% of the population of this country. They're also reporting just under 100 deaths from COVID-19, or roughly 1.5% of those cases. Now compare this to the seasonal flu. That same CDC estimates that between 20,000 and 40,000 Americans will die from the flu this year. There were no calls for events, schools, and churches to shut down. No national emergency, no calls for mandatory quarantines. Only a recommendation for people to get a vaccine and to take precautions if they were in a high-risk group. Yet I'm seeing everything from national events to local schools and churches voluntarily close. And that is their choice. But more and more we are seeing calls for governments to take away our liberties, our ability to choose for ourselves, and to force businesses and individuals to act in a way they think is best, even when it's detrimental not only to those being intimidated, but to the nation as a whole. Yes, COVID-19 is a nasty virus, and we should take reasonable precautions. But this panic is not only bad for you, it's bad for the country. Not only is the economy being severely impacted, but people's jobs are at stake. Their ability to get food and other necessities has become more and more difficult. And now we see more and more of those in government claiming to come to our rescue, when what will really happen is they will take away our liberties to do so. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not surprised by the recent attempt to acquire power and control of the American people in this recent crisis. But is anyone counting the cost? Presidential candidates claim it shows that we should have socialized medicine. Are you really willing to give up your ability to decide for yourself about your medical treatment? Do you want your medical decisions made by a faceless bureaucracy? Do you want your health care to look more like the VA than what you have today? Are you willing to pay that price? Yes, some will need additional medical care, and I've seen clinics and insurance companies step in to help. But are you willing to give up on the best medical system in the world? Let's face it, the one where most everybody comes when they are desperate. Are you willing to give that up just for the temporary assistance for some of your neighbors? I see politicians assuming powers not delegated to them by the constitutions that created their offices. Whether it's the abuse of quarantines, law enforcement, or the business licensing system in order to coerce businesses to shut down, I see politicians across the nation taking this opportunity to take even more liberties from the people under the guise of keeping them safe. I saw a video from Patriot Academy that talked about quarantines and put them into context. The most important point was not just where, but who was imposing them and in determining whether they were constitutional or not. Now, I don't agree with everything that was in the video, but as a whole, it is a very good resource. I saw an article about the governor of Florida ordering that certain bars and clubs be forced to shut down. And my first thought was, where does he have the authority to do that? But then I realized you require a business license to operate these. So I recently had to get permission from the state of Tennessee to start the business called the Constitution Study so I could actually start selling stuff. These businesses had to get permission from the state to exist. Now the state is exercising its muscle and telling them to shut down. That's a secondary effect of losing of liberty. And it's one thing for a state to isolate someone who has tested positive for the virus and refuses to self-quarantine. They are an imminent threat to others. It's quite another to call for blanket infringement on people's rights when there's no evidence they would infringe on the rights of others. And if we allow the government to impose their restrictions on us without due process for this crisis, what makes us think they won't for the next one? Are we willing to trade not only our essential liberties, but those of our children and our grandchildren for the promise that the government will keep us safe? Now, some have even been calling for the nationalization, the government takeover of industries. Probably the most blatant and ridiculous power grab came from New York City Mayor de Blasio, who claimed the crisis proved the need to nationalize industries. That's right. This mayor wants to emulate Venezuela and have the government steal businesses from their rightful owners because he thinks government can do a better job. Prove it. And just so you don't think I'm picking on one party, President Trump just signed an executive order based on a 1950 law to force medical supply companies to produce more masks, ventilators, and ICU beds. Tell me, where in the Constitution does the president have the power to make such demands? Where does the Constitution give Congress the authority to pass such law? And what makes the president think medical supply companies aren't already doing everything they can to sell as much as possible of their products? If Mr. Trump really wanted to boost production of medical supplies, he should start by rescinding some of the onerous and unconstitutional regulations that the federal government has imposed that actually slow down the production and distribution of these supplies. Now, as I said, the COVID-19 virus should be taken seriously, but not irrationally. We, the people of this nation, should do all we can to get good information, not the fear-mongering and propaganda that seems to flow from most of the corporate media and social media these days. We, the people, should take responsible precautions for ourselves, balancing the risks versus the needs of ourselves and our families. We should also be considerate and protect the rights of our neighbors by not doing things that would put them at unnecessary risk. Most of all, we should stop acting like the government has all the answers, that people in government somehow know better than we do, that someone, just because they get a government paycheck, they're special. See, otherwise, one day soon, we'll find that the pottage of protection from this coronavirus will have cost us the liberties that are the very birthright of every American. Now, I'm no doctor, I'm no medical professional, which is why I didn't include any medical information. All I do is quote facts. Facts from the CDC and news articles that are widely available. The question is, are we going to let our fear turn us from the land of the free into the land of the serfs? From a republic into a kingdom or an oligarchy? Are we going to establish an oligarchy, an aristocracy, that anyone that can get a government job, gets a government paycheck, has more rights than we do, has authority over us? Or are we going to recognize that, yes, this is a serious virus and we need to take serious but reasonable, sensible precautions? That is up to we, the people, to take care of ourselves, to stop looking to government to take care of absolutely everything for us, and to stop begging government to enforce our will on others, even if it's for a good reason. Now, I know a lot of people want to push forth these quarantines and these other programs because they think it'll make things better. But are you willing to sacrifice your rights, your freedoms, and your liberties in order to be able to do that? Because that's what it's going to cost. It's one thing for the government to recommend, to ask that people self-quarantine, socially isolate. I have no problem with that. But as soon as we give the government the power to enforce on you for when you've done nothing wrong, to bypass due process, to punish you for no crime, then we've lost our most precious rights and liberty. As I said, it's one thing if you've tested positive to have you isolated. You should self-quarantine. If you get tested positive, you should self-quarantine. If you refuse to, well, then there's a place for government to come in. But other than that, all government is doing is infringing on our rights. They are using this crisis to take away your rights and liberties, my rights and liberties, and the ones of our children and our grandchildren. And if we don't stand up and start acting like adults, taking responsibility for our actions and holding those who work for us responsible for theirs, then this experiment in self-government will die. And it'll die not from an outside invasion. It'll die because we killed it. We killed it ourselves. We did so in a panic. We did so without thinking it through. We did so without counting the cost. So I hope I bring a little bit of sanity to the insane world that we're living in right now. A little bit of calm and reason to the panic that is all over the internet these days. Most of all, I hope I made you think, and I hope you found it worthy to come back next time where we can meet again on the Constitution.
You have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long